Welcome, listeners, to another episode of Beyond the Unknown. I'm your host, Jolie.
And I'm Quinn.
And today, we're delving into the chilling and perplexing case of Elisa Lam. Her story has captured the world's attention, and to this day, it remains one of the most mysterious and haunting unsolved cases. Join us as we delve into the notorious background of the Cecil Hotel and unravel the tragic yet incredibly eerie story of Elisa Lam. Or as you like to say, Cecil Hotel.
Disclaimer, before we begin, we want to let our listeners know that today's podcast contains discussions about sensitive topics, including suicide. We understand that this subject matter can be distressing, and we want to ensure that everyone is aware before proceeding. If you or someone you know is struggling with mental health issues, we strongly encourage seeking support from friends, family, and mental health professionals. Your well-being is important to us, and resources are available. Please consider this content warning as we delve into our discussion today. All right, so let's get into it. Imagine reaching the age where breaking free from the rules and constraints of your parental figures becomes a reality. This was the scenario for 21-year-old Elisa Lam in early 2013, when she decided to take off on a solo journey of self-discovery and adventure through the west coast of the USA. Unfortunately, her travels took a dark turn when she arrived at the infamous Cecil Hotel. Cecil Hotel. I love calling it the Cecil Hotel.
Adds some character.
It does. To set the stage for today's episode, let's delve into the details of the hotel itself, which is our focal point. This towering and grand structure stands impressively at 14 stories and comprises a staggering 700 rooms. I know 14 stories doesn't sound a lot, but this place was opened in 1924 in what is now downtown LA, and it boasted a construction cost of $1.5 million. I know that Joe loves a good "what would this cost now" game, so any idea what $1.5 million would be now?
And oh my God, 1924, $1.5 million. I feel like you could buy a country at that point in the 20s. I don't know, like $10 million?
No. So this is equivalent to just under $27 million.
Holy shit.
So it was like 26.9 something. So yeah, it's a lot. So that's like, it's a big deal.
Yeah.
The hotel was conceived by visionaries William Hanner, Charles Dix, and Robert Shops, and it was designed to cater to the needs of both business-related travel and tourism. When it opened, the hotel immediately captivated everyone with its expansive, beautiful lobby featuring marble flooring, tall ceilings, and extravagant over-the-top decor. The presence of stained glass windows and other upscale embellishments added that extra touch of luxury commonly associated with high-end hotels. It was the kind of lobby that if you showed up, you'd be like, okay, I'm staying somewhere nice. Well, I don't know. When you walk into a hotel, I think you get a pretty good idea.
Oh yeah, the second you walk into the lobby, you can tell, like, is this Super 8 or this like Fairmont?
Yeah, should I leave?
Yeah.
So only 5 years later, the economy crashed. I'm sure you've all heard of the Great Depression. This was pretty bad timing for hoteliers Hanner, Dix, and Shops, but somehow the hotel did super well until the 1940s. So although they survived the Great Depression, they could not overcome the notoriety of Skid Row. If you don't know, Skid Row is a neighborhood in downtown LA, and it's known for its high concentration of homelessness and poverty. It has makeshift shelters, tents, and it's a visible struggle for survival. It faces significant challenges in terms of homelessness, substance abuse, mental health issues, and it remains infamous for prevalent crime, drug use, alcoholism, and a transient population. It's a lot like East Hastings in Vancouver, honestly.
Yeah, I've seen it online, and I feel like I've driven past it when I was in LA, but that could have just been another area of town, but I remember it was pretty rough. And it's like blocks.
Ooh, yeah, I couldn't really, like, I could kind of see how far it was from the Hotel Cecil, and it's honestly just a couple blocks, but I couldn't get an idea of how long it actually expanded, so yeah, that makes sense. In the 1940s, Skid Row solidified its presence and experienced exponential growth, housing thousands. By then, there was approximately 10,000 homeless people, and it was suspected that at least 50% of all the crime in LA was originating in this area. Today, Skid's Row population continues to fluctuate by nature, but it's estimated to be anywhere between 8 to 15,000.
Just people who are living on the streets?
Yeah, like
Okay.
it just fluctuates.
That's way bigger than East Hastings.
That's what I thought, but yeah. Over time, the building was upstaged by larger, nicer hotels and ones that were not next to Skid Row. Today, the hotel still stands and it's pretty much unchanged. The lobby is still quite exquisite and it has all of those features I talked about, but now it's slightly outdated and perhaps not as well maintained as it once would have been. But apparently when you step beyond the lobby, it's literally like you've entered a completely different universe. There's old rickety elevators, stained carpets, shoddy looking doors, dirty and damaged walls, you name it. Since 2007, the Cecil Hotel has had multiple functions. There was a portion listed as long-term housing which was located on the first and second floors, and in an effort to revive and rebrand the establishment, a segment of the hotel operates under the name Stay on Main, and this is located on floors 4 through 6. So Stay on Main caters to budget-conscious travelers, offering kind of like hostel-style hotel rooms. Interestingly, the Stay on Main was advertised often in such a way that people didn't actually know that they were booking anything to do with the Cecil Hotel. So you'd show up and be like, oh, this is where I am.
Yikes.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't be too thrilled about that, but former Cecil Hotel residents, so people that were staying in that long-term housing, say that basically anything above the 6th floor, so that Stay on Main area, so 7th floor and up, it still functions as the Cecil Hotel, and it's considered quite dangerous. I can't confirm when, but at some point, the rooms on these floors could be rented by the day or the hour, which obviously it's clear what people would be doing with that. Calls to 911 were reportedly quite a common occurrence, and it would be like 1 to 3 times a day minimum.
Whoa.
Yeah, that's a lot, like for one hotel. And the hotel has a long history of deaths, suicide, murders, stabbings, and rape dating back to at least 1930. Notably, the infamous serial killer Richard Ramirez used the hotel as his home base at one time.
What? Oh my God.
Yeah. I didn't look into him too much, but he had quite the killing spree, and it's not clear if like the Hotel Cecil was like a site of anything he actually did, but it was definitely his home base while it was all going down.
I don't think so. I've seen some documentaries on him, and like a whole neighborhood like chased him down and caught him, and that's how they caught him.
Oh,
so we should
wow.
cover that sometime.
Yeah, absolutely. So now fast forward to 2013, we have the tragic yet eerie story of 21-year-old Elisa Lam. Some of you might already know this story. I personally have not been able to forget about it since I learned about it. I think it was a documentary I watched. So let's start just by telling a little bit more about who Elisa Lam is. So she was born on April 30th, 1991, and at the time of her arrival to the hotel, she was just 21 years old. Prior to her journey to the US, she lived with her family on the west coast of Canada and was a student, I think, at the University of British Columbia. But I can't be sure if she actually was still a university student at the time of this trip to the Hotel Cecil. And we'll get into why that's a little confusing a little bit as we go on. But at the time, Elisa was your classic 21-year-old, full of wanderlust and pretty angsty. Unfortunately, she also struggled significantly with mental health issues, which were chronicled on her Tumblr account, which is still active today.
Really? Does Tumblr even exist still?
Yeah, I found it all archived. It's called Nouveau Nouvelle, but I'm a bit of a Tumblr noob. And so from what I could tell, the blog started in March of 2011 and she posted pretty frequently. Like at one point she chronicled her 10,000th post.
Whoa.
Yeah, I went through it all. It was a lot. But early on, her posts focused mainly on her interests such as art, photography, music, and literature, and her grievances with her social circle and society as a whole. It was quite angsty, really. At one point, she seems to refer to complete disgust over what we now call unboxing videos. Do you know what those are?
Yes, and you know what? I get it. I was an angsty teen, or probably this
You
time.
were.
Yeah, whenever this happened in 2013.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was at my peak angst, and I get it. Unboxing videos are cool, but at the same time, it's just capitalism.
I guess. And yes, you were super angsty, but me over here, I loved unboxing videos. In fact, I still watch them. Not as much as I used to, but I loved when people would get all the PR stuff for free and then just open it all on camera. And you're like, sweet, all the stuff I can't have.
For free. You got this for free.
Yeah, I know. Well, so she was on the same side as you and she thought it was really showy and unrealistic, and she just pretty much shit on the whole practice. Apparently back then it also wasn't called an unboxing video, it was called a reveal.
Oh, so fancy.
Yeah, I know. On the blog, she also talked a lot about her struggles, which will become more apparent into the years 2012 and 2013. She notes difficulties with her schooling and even her social circle, and there were very strong themes of loneliness and isolation. Even at one point, she calls herself an observer or someone who wanders alone.
Aww.
She does mention a boyfriend, though, in November of 2011, who she calls Le Boyfriend. The themes of mental health issues become more and more apparent, though. The earliest I can see mention of it is when she's talking about just having, like, quote, shitty days or shitty weeks. But then in September 2011, she first brings up her insomnia, and this theme is repeated quite frequently throughout the blog. At the very end of 2011, in December, she posts about, quote, going down again, and how this is a vicious cycle for her, and she repeats her feelings of loneliness and abandonment throughout these posts. It isn't until May 3rd, 2012, where she posts a photo of the, quote, cocktail of prescriptions I take for depression.
Whoa.
She says that she's taking Effexor and that it took her 2 years to find the medication that led to some benefit. So clearly there was depression for at least, doing the math here, 2010. She says she's also taking Wellbutrin, which is for mood. She's also taking Dexedrine, also known as Adderall. And she seems to be surprised at this new diagnosis of ADHD. She also does not love her psychiatrist. She refers to him as Shrinky Dink. I thought that was kind of cute. Finally, she says she's taking lamotrigine for an also newer diagnosis of bipolar disorder. For those who don't know, bipolar disorder is when someone can have these prolonged periods where they're super low, no motivation, very depressed, sleep a lot, that kind of thing. And then these prolonged periods of being like really high, excitable, not sleeping. I'm not doing a great description of it. I'm not a psychiatrist, but that's the gist of it. She indicates that she feels that taking this medication is a weakness though, and she wishes she didn't have to. She indicates very firmly here, though, that she's not suicidal and she would just prefer to sleep in bed, and that sleeping in bed is essentially how her illness manifests itself. A few months later in August, she says that she told her sister that she would need it to be checked into a formal treatment place. She states that, again, she's not suicidal, but that she's not functional and she doesn't feel that she's actually living her life. In 2012, she states that she had a very bad day and that she does want to kill herself. She feels very scared, but she says clearly she has not attempted to kill herself, and the only reason for this is because she describes herself as a coward.
Oh my God.
I know, it kind of gets sad, and she says she doesn't see a purpose in living anymore. And then she says something kind of interesting. She says that she would have to kill herself or attempt to kill herself to be taken seriously. And what she is meant to be taken seriously for, I'm not sure, whether it's how unwell she is or something else. And then her posts after this don't really bring up suicide ever again. She talks about low self-esteem and a few things like that, but never quite this dark. Suddenly in November 2012, she mentions wanting to try to meet up with some of her blog followers when she's visiting Ottawa in Canada. That's the capital.
So she must be like pretty big blog? Or
Yeah, like she had a lot. I think so. I honestly don't know how to use Tumblr, but she had it seemed like quite a connection with people who would comment and engage with her on this blog. And obviously, she must have been doing somewhat well from a mental health perspective too, to want to see people and meet new people. Then in December, her boyfriend wants to end their relationship, but she doesn't get the hint at first. He says he wants to take a break and she doesn't really understand. Oh. Then her sister steps in and gives her unsolicited advice, much as sisters do, Joe. But essentially, the boyfriend did want to break up. Her sister helped her figure that out, and she didn't really take it that well. And then following this, there was lots of mentions of drinking, being drunk, and going to clubs.
Was the mention of her boyfriend wanting to take a break and stuff, was that documented on her Tumblr, or is that from something else?
No, that's on the Tumblr. She's pretty open about all of her stuff on there. Yeah. In the new year, she announces this West Coast tour in the United States. Initially, she has a ton of places on her list, but she finally settles on Vancouver, Canada, San Diego, Los Angeles, Santa Cruz, and San Francisco. She leaves for Vancouver on January 18th. And after this, she posts about going to an event of some sort, being rejected, and then she leaves for San Diego. Yeah, I don't know. They're kind of vague posts at this point. So yeah, San Diego on January 23rd, and then on January 27th, she's kind of clear about the fact that she's going to go out at night alone, because prior to that, she felt like she wasn't doing too much different than she would have been doing at home. But then she talks about being pretty worried about getting hit on or, getting unsolicited attention, that kind of thing.
I'm concerned for her at this point if she's posting so often about her locations, being a solo traveler woman. Like, that's pretty freaky. And she has a fan base.
Yep, it's super risky in my mind, given and throughout this travel, she'll post about trying to want to meet up with people and wanting to make connections. So yeah, I would never do something like this. And then on January 29th, a super cryptic post, she's like, my laptop screen is brighter than my future. So I think mentally, mental health wise, things are not going well based on that post. But then later on January 29th, so a second post on the same day, she posts that she's arrived in LA, or La La Land as she calls it. And it's here that she checks into the Cecil Hotel. Throughout her trip, she's been giving her family daily updates, but on January 31st, so just a few days after arriving in LA, her family became pretty concerned when they didn't hear from her, and they contacted the LAPD. She was also due to check out of the hotel on the 31st, but she didn't show up to kind of go through that process. So on February 1st, 2013, she was officially reported missing. The family flew to LA, and along with the LAPD, they started searching for Elisa. First, they looked closely at the hotel and questioned the staff. Hotel staff said they only ever saw her alone. The police searched the hotel, but they were limited legally, although they searched the common areas and her room. Even with the police scent dog, they couldn't search every room as they didn't have probable cause.
So clearly I don't understand probable cause, because I would have thought a missing foreign traveler would count.
I honestly don't understand the legal terms, because me too, I thought that would be enough to kind of look in all the rooms, but obviously not. Outside of the hotel, the only person who knew or has known to have seen Elisa that they could find anyways was at a nearby bookstore called the Last Bookstore. Apparently she went there on more than one occasion and would chat to the actual bookstore owner. And the owner described her as lively and that she was choosing gifts to bring home for her family. She was looking at so many books, she was trying to pick which ones would be okay to pack and that she'd be able to fit in her backpack. So we start to think about possibilities to explain Elisa's disappearance. In my opinion, when we think about her mental health struggles and various other things, and signs that someone could consider ending their life, this would signal the opposite, because she's planning for the future. She's thinking about gifts. She's thinking about seeing her family again. So to me, that kind of points away from that theory so far. But obviously nothing's a slam dunk. A week later, there's still no signs of Elisa, and they're nowhere near finding her whereabouts. With no useful information or further leads to follow, flyers were posted. Another week goes by. The police grew desperate and released a very unusual and disturbing video that was obtained from the hotel security footage. The 2-minute and 29-second video surveillance footage from inside one of the Hotel Cecil elevators first shows the elevator door opening, then Elisa entering the elevator from the left side in the hallway. For an instant, nothing appears out of the ordinary. Then she bends forward, quite low down, to inspect the buttons, and she pushes a few different buttons. Then she stands back up and goes to the corner of the elevator, as if waiting for the elevator to respond, but nothing happens. Slowly, she creeps back out of the elevator opening, almost as if she's afraid, and kind of peers outside of the elevator door towards the right. Then she suddenly rushes back into the elevator, and it appears like she's hiding, and she tucks right into that front right-hand corner by the buttons for a few moments. Then she exits back outside the elevator and checks towards the right side now again. Outside of the elevator now, she seems to face away from us for a few moments before sidestepping off to the left out of our sight. Then we kind of see her come back into view, and we see her right arm kind of moving around. It appears that she's gesturing, and then she comes back in with both arms out in front of her. At this point, she starts erratically hitting a ton of buttons all over the elevator. But again, the weirdest thing, there's no response from the elevator. The door never opens, it never it never closes, and it never tries to close.
That's so weird.
It's weird, right? Like, you think this is like a long video, 2 minutes and 30 seconds, and at no point does it respond. So the video ends with her moving towards the left outside of the elevator where she can no longer be seen. The most unsettling part, in my opinion, was the tendency where she kind of hid in the corner as if she's in fear. And then obviously what we just talked about, where the elevator doesn't respond to her pushing 101 buttons. There's a lot of unseen area in the video, and we can't really see into the areas where she's facing when she's outside of the elevator. So you can't be sure if there's ever anyone there that she's talking to, but it definitely looks like it.
Weird.
But given that this was released to the public, there was a lot of opinions and theories swirling around. Interestingly, the public seemed to catch on to some inconsistencies in the video footage itself. For example, some thought that parts of the video might have actually been like slowed down, so it made it look weirder than it really was. And then the timestamp was obscured.
Oh.
Yeah, like you couldn't really see. And some people, and I don't know how they deduced this because I watched the video and I couldn't really tell, but they felt like a chunk of the time was missing. And if it was, they're like, why? And the thought is, was there someone else who did pop into frame whose identity was being protected? But it's never been clarified. It's just super creepy, super confusing.
Well, have you ever heard of the elevator game?
Nope. Go on.
Okay, so I've heard about this story too, and I've also heard about the elevator game before Elisa Lam, and it's like this creepy game that I think originated somewhere in like South Korea or somewhere else, where you kind of hit a series of buttons within an elevator, and then you could get transformed or brought to a different world, and there's some risk to it. So I thought I would read you like the instructions on how to play it. Not that I'm advocating that anyone should play it, but just in case, I'll read you the steps and maybe some of the like lore around it.
All right, I'm in.
Okay. So step 1, you need to find a building with an elevator with at least 10 floors. And like you said, Hotel Cecil was 14, so it definitely matches the bill.
Yep.
You have to be alone, and it's recommended that you start in the lobby. Did Elisa start in the lobby or from a different floor?
No, she was on one of the floors in the hotel. I can't remember which one. It was like a back service elevator, but she wasn't on the main level.
Okay. So step 2, you'd press the elevator buttons in a specific sequence, which kind of reminds me of what you said Elisa was doing, where she was like looking intensely at the buttons and slowly picking them out the first time.
Yeah.
And the sequence of the buttons are as follows. You hit 4, 2, 6, 2, 10, and then 5. And the rule is that you do not exit the elevator if the doors open on any floor during the sequence, which is, I guess, opposite from what she experienced since the doors didn't open at all. But that would be really freaky too.
Well, they didn't close. Like, they were just consistently open.
Okay.
Sorry if I missed that when I was explaining it, but yeah, they were just open the whole time. Like she was walking freely between the ground, like the outside and the inside.
Right, yeah. You did say that. So step 3, after pressing the final button number 5, the elevator is supposed to ascend to the 10th floor. At this point, a mysterious young woman may enter the elevator, but you are supposed to not look at her or speak to her, or else like something bad could happen. It's said that if you like look at her or speak to her, you might like never return back to the like real world or whatever world you kind of came from, which is freaky.
That's so freaky. I want to do it though.
Yeah, but you have to do it alone, so that's the scary part. I feel like you and I could do this in a hotel, but the fact that I'd have to be alone wouldn't work unless we went to a hotel that had like 2 elevators side by side and we looked out and we're like, okay, let's do this.
Oh, even then I'd be too scared without you.
Yeah. All right, so the game is not over. Step 4, if the elevator reaches the 10th floor, then you have to press a button for the first floor. However, the elevator may not descend as expected. Instead, it might take you to another world, as they often recall it as the other world. In the other world, things are said to be eerily quiet with no one around. The environment may resemble the real world, but you're the only living presence there. So this is where it gets risky. To return to the real world, you must press the buttons for the first floor once more. If you're successful, you'll return safely, but some claim that the other world can be a place of confusion and danger. Stories related to the elevator game may vary, with some participants reporting disturbing experiences, while others say it didn't work at all. These stories often involve encounters with ghostly figures, unsettling visitors, and an overwhelming feeling of dread.
Oh, God.
So I'm really tempted to play it, but like you, I'm too scared to do it for myself.
What if you do it with someone else? It just doesn't work.
I don't think it'll work.
Okay. Well, I still want to do it. I might. I'll keep you posted.
Yeah, let me know before you do it.
Will do. You can come find me. Days turned into weeks and the search for Elisa Lam continued. Then on February 19th, 2013, a hotel maintenance worker peered into one of the hotel's rooftop 8-foot-high water tanks and found Elisa Lam's lifeless body floating in the water, completely naked. The discovery raised more questions than answers. How did Elisa end up in the water tank? Why was she acting so strangely in the elevator? And what led to her untimely demise? The official cause of death was labeled as an accidental drowning, and her bipolar disorder was noted as a contributing factor. However, this explanation didn't satisfy everyone, as it failed to address the peculiar circumstances surrounding her death. Speculation and theories abounded.
Wow. And how did he know to go look in that tank?
So that's one of the theories, like, is he just trying to play dumb? Was he involved? Because, like, why was he looking there? But apparently the lid of the water tank was open and it's not supposed to be. So his theory is, like, I went to go close it and that's when I saw, or that's what he says anyways. So some believe that Elisa was experiencing a psychotic episode or that she was potentially pursued by an unseen threat. She often commented in the blog about having a big mouth and worrying that it might someday get her into trouble. Others pointed to the Cecil Hotel's dark history, which included other notorious deaths and criminal activities. And some thought she was just on, like, ecstasy or LSD.
Would that make you do that?
Yeah, like, it could make you, like, you'll have hallucinations, do, like, really unusual things, want to take your clothes off. Like, I think it, like, makes you also, like, a little bit hypersexual, that kind of thing.
Gotcha. Well, the drug theory isn't unreasonable, and her blogs do mention partying or drinking prior to being in LA, as well as going out during the nights on other parts of her trip.
Yeah, I thought so too, but the autopsy didn't reveal any drugs in her system. Though skeptics say it's possible that the drugs had already broken down, but it's hard to say. Some people also wondered about suicide given her suicidal ideation only months prior to the trip, and that when her room was searched, they found that her prescription medications, based on the amount of pills that were left, she was either under-medicating or stopped taking them altogether. But kind of like I said before, like, I take issue with that because she was buying gifts. She was thinking about her backpack and the rest of her trip. Yeah, like, it doesn't quite fit with that. But
yeah, you'd expect
anyways,
that she, like, wouldn't be messaging anyone or, like, getting rid of her stuff.
Yeah. So, intentional or accidental, though, this still doesn't explain how she gets into the water tank in the first place. The rooftop wasn't even accessible. It's locked. But the search dogs did lose her scent near a window that apparently accesses a fire escape, which leads directly to the water tanks.
Oh, okay.
But still, I just find it, yeah, like, it's possible. I just think it's weird. Can you imagine being in this, like, new city and this, like, big hotel for only a couple days, and it's like a super creepy hotel, and somehow finding the one window that has the fire escape that's going to take you to the, like, water tanks? Like, it wasn't like a labeled, like, here's how you get there.
I don't get how she gets into the tank either. Didn't you say it's over 8 feet tall? Is there, like, a little ladder?
No, there is no ladder. Like, the maintenance people, in order to even get on the tanks, would have to bring a ladder. So she would have literally had to parkour her way into the tank because there wasn't a ladder or rope or anything found out there that she could have gotten herself in.
There are so many possibilities, and the haunting elevator clip makes things even more confusing now.
To further make things even more creepy, Elisa continued to post on Tumblr after her death. And given that her phone was never found, not in the tank, not in the hotel room, it's not clear if this was using the queue feature, so you could queue up post to post later. Or was it someone who like stole her phone, or like a cyber hacker? Like, no idea. They can't prove it any other way.
That is insane.
There were 5 posts following her death. The first was some random one of like a Roman road. Then there was a few about Harry Potter things. There was something about like where she posted a whole bunch of question marks to form a question mark, and it was like, quick guide to dealing with emotions. And then the final post on February 16th read, quote, rare words. And then she listed a cosmist, Paralian, Oriot, Dwali, Sabaism, dysphoria, Obaid, humoris, and finally Mimp. And she put definitions to those words too, but that's the last anyone heard from Elisa Lam.
Wow, that's insane.
Isn't it? Ooh, it's creepy. The Tumblr thing I didn't know about until going through it. Yeah. So that wraps up the chilling case of Elisa Lam, which after 10 years has yet to be solved. This serves as a haunting reminder that some mysteries may never be fully unraveled. What do you guys think? What are your theories? Reach out to us. Let us know. I find this fascinating.
Yeah, please let us know, because this like opened up way more than I thought I knew before. Like I didn't know that none of her clothes were found, and I didn't know you could even queue things in Tumblr. So clearly I wasn't a big Tumblr girl.
Yeah.
All right, well, thank you for joining us on another episode of Beyond the Unknown. If you have a story you'd like to share, please email us at moody.mediaprod@gmail.com or reach out to us on Instagram. You can also reach out on our website, and who knows, your story might be featured in an upcoming episode.
All of our sources for this episode can be found on our website, beyondtheunknownpod.com. And don't forget, if you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and leave us a review.
Until next time, listeners, stay curious and remember that the unknown is always just beyond the shadows.
Bye.